Hey, I'm Jacob, this is Jared, and we're from the channel Wisecrack, also Thug Notes and a few other shows, and we're here with GA and Creator Up to talk about how to create your own YouTube channel. We're up to 365,000 subscribers in the channel, about 17 million views. For some channels that's big, for some other channels that's pretty small, but overall pretty sizable for the fact that we're doing education.
Cool. My name is Jared. The easiest way to think of us is I'm the head of content as well as the head writer on all the shows on Wisecrack, and Jacob is the businessman, or I'll let him introduce himself.
Hey guys, I'm Jacob. We're both from Texas. We moved out, we made a pinky promise. Can you hear me? I have to hold it very close. I sound like Howard Stern now. We were both from Texas. We met in college, and we made a pact. We had a pinky promise that one day we'd both move out to LA and make movies together. And so we came out here, and movies took a long, long time to get off the ground. So we said, well, why don't we just put $400 together and make a YouTube video? And then that led us down the path of creating YouTube content. We saw we were able to build our own audience. It's very bizarre. Build our own audience and get started that way. So. Again, my background's more on the business side. Jared's definitely the writer, creator, and filmmaker, and so together we have kind of a cool partnership that's an interesting blend. Should we dive into a little bit of the story, or?
Yeah, why don't you tell us your story, and we'll go from there.
Okay, so you want
Sure. So once again, like, we decided that we wanted to make movies, but movies take a long time, and we needed something to keep us busy, and we didn't want to be professional coffee meeting people, which is what you do when you're trying to make a movie. And so we wanted to be constantly making something, and so that led us down the path of YouTube. We made a very short-lived series, like a Jewish comedy series called Bubble Please, and that did really well among the Jewish community and stuff like that. So that was kind of and when like the first video went sort of viral, it got like 700,000 views and was on Huffington Post and stuff like that. So we're like, oh, okay, there's something to this. Like, it's a medium that can be cracked in a way, and that, you know, you can really, like, make a name for yourself. Because I was always under the philosophy that it's better to, the best way you can sell yourself among any medium, whether it be you're trying to just stay in web, or you're trying to go to television, or you're trying to make feature films, you know, it's all about constructing your narrative. And like, if you're someone who has found success in one platform or has been able to find an audience, that speaks so much more than, you know, having a great screenplay that no one's ever going to read. So, like, that was just like, okay, well, we got to do something, and so we just kind of used our energy towards YouTube. And this whole thing with education just kind of grew out of the idea that, when we were doing Bubble Please, we were looking at the kind of stuff that succeeds on YouTube, and I noticed that a lot of stuff, like, based on pre-existing brands, does really well. So like movie reviews, making fun of movies, blah, blah, blah. But there was nothing about books. There was no real channel about the humanities. There was a lot of science education, a lot of math education. And so I basically just came up with this idea. I'm like, well, how do we tackle books? Well, when I was in high school, I didn't want to read The Great Gatsby. I wanted to watch Chappelle's Show. So why don't we just mix the two? And that's how we came up with Thug Notes. And that was our first viral success. And then from that, we kind of said, oh, well, maybe there's something to this. Like, we ended up doing a test, and it turns out that students were actually learning. They were really engaged by what we were doing, and so we were like, why can't we take this idea of education and edgy comedy, just basically just not giving a fuck about like offending people, or just like, doing stuff that's edgy, stuff they wouldn't show in a classroom, because I mean, most kids are kind of educating themselves on the internet when they get home anyway. So we kind of from there on said like, okay, well, maybe this can work across other platforms. So the other two that we've since gone into are philosophy and movies, teaching about philosophy through video games, and teaching about, like, in a sense, cinema appreciation through comedy. So yeah, that's kind of like the genesis of the idea and the brand that we're pursuing. And I think Jacob can talk a little bit about how we kind of turned that idea of mixing education and comedy, and how we kind of created value out of that.
That was, so any questions from that story? Yeah.
Okay, I have a couple. What did you do with your $400? You said you started with
Okay.
The other one was, you said you had immediate viral success in Huffington Post. So how did you do that? Are you guys linked in with networks? Did you send a bloggers list? Did you mass email everyone? Or did you just get lucky?
To repeat the question here, what did you do with your $400? And how did you hit that quote-unquote viral success? What was your strategy?
You want to tap into that?
Well, before we go into the nitty-gritty, I do want to just say that it's always luck. Always luck. So there's always an element to that. Anyone who says that, like, their content is just good enough or they tapped into something that they just knew was going to work is lying. It's just chaos. But to answer your question, so for the $400, I come from a filmmaking background, and I had moved out here with some other filmmakers, and so like in terms of, I had a lot of favors to pull, so a lot of people to do kind of cheap labor, basically do favors for me. So the $400 really went into just like paying the actors very, very little. Like we did pay everyone to help us out, but it was token amounts, basically like, a meal or something. Like, I mean, it was like 10 to 15 bucks. I don't remember how much we did. But most of it was like light rentals.
I was asking what it was that we made.
Oh, is that what you're asking? Or are you asking what we did financially with the money, or what did the script end up being?
Question. So what did you put your funding towards? I love it, production, lights,
right.
actors, and then what did you do?
But how did you get it out there?
Yeah, I mean, like, did you have a friend at Huffington Post? Or
No.
Did you send it,
I mean, yeah, we sent it to everybody we knew. I don't know. Oh, actually, I do know. It was, once again, a luck thing. My mom was really overzealous about, oh, this video is so great, so she just got on Twitter and started tweeting every celebrity she knows. And the one celebrity that really loved it was Roseanne Barr. And she tweeted it, and I think after that, like, Jessica Seinfeld tweeted it, and it just, yeah, luck.
So when we were creating the idea of the show is two gangsters speak Yiddish and they both make latkes together. So we knew that it was going to be like timely for Hanukkah. It was going to be, there was something coming up. People needed something to send around. And so we timed it that way. And we also knew it was like something that had never been done before for Jewish comedy. It was like really kind of, sorry, it's very close. This is so bizarre. It was something a little bit edgy for the Jewish audience, so it had never been done before. So we initially sent it out, again, lots and lots of just like pushing, like lots of activity. Again, his mom physically tweeting every single celebrity she knew, me sending it to my entire family and every person that I knew, and then that eventually we posted onto Facebook, and eventually it tipped. It got picked up on the Heb magazine. It got picked up on, I don't even remember the name of a lot of these publications, the Jewish Journal. I mean, it was like back to back. A lot of people started picking it up because they needed something to write about. So one of the lessons was like, make it something that people could write about, something that would be buzzworthy enough for a publicist, and it's timely and something interesting as journalists or anybody who's looking for something to write about. We had the holiday and we had the comedy angle. And so that worked. And the same thing kind of happened with Thug Notes, in that people had this common collective consciousness about To Kill a Mockingbird, right? It was like something they'd all heard of, but they'd never seen it done in this way.
So I'm going to jump in here, and it's like the microphones have to be held like this.
Okay, like Janet Jackson.
What makes YouTube special as a platform? You've got Vimeo, Brightcove, Wistia, all these business video options, right?
Right.
So you guys obviously were basic consumers, but for these guys, some of whom will or won't be creating entertainment content for entertainment purposes, why is YouTube a unique platform, and what are its elements?
I've just heard it being said that you got to fish where the fish are swimming, and so with YouTube you've got 1 billion unique people a month on the platform. So it's just really where people are. There are going to be opportunities to go capture an audience that is on Vimeo. There are people on Vimeo. There are people on, so Brightcove would be more on your own site, but there are people all across the web that you could capture. But the truth is, for us, if you've got 1 billion people watching content, it's that whole idea if I can get a fraction of that billion, then I've got a good amount of views and I can build a business that way. Or in the sense of it's business-to-business video content, you have the same opportunity. You have a lot of people there. And so with that many people and that many eyeballs, you've got a better chance of capturing something and making those numbers significant. I mean, and it's so ubiquitous a platform. It works on every single device. It works on every single platform, every single browser. And so, of course, it's just everywhere. It's very easy to use.
How long
So this is a question about how long videos are.
Well, when we first started, I was very adamant about like no video longer than 3 minutes and 59 seconds because I was very adamant that if people even saw that it was over 4 minutes long, they would immediately turn it off, because people have the attention span of nothing. So when we were first starting our couple videos, first starting to build our fan base, I was pretty adamant about keeping it under 4 minutes. However, now that we have a reputation and a fan base, we've creeped up to like 7 minutes. Once you have the attention of people and you have a reputation, I mean, they're willing to stay longer. So, but I would just, if you're trying to start something, keep it short. Yeah, the first video was, I think it was even less, like 2 minutes long. Yeah, so our first Google Please episode was like 2 minutes long, and I think that's another big help because people don't like watching stuff that's too long.
What are the sectors here? Are people doing B2B or consumer, or what do we have?
Yeah, if you own your own business and you're not in the entertainment space, raise your hand. Okay, raise your hand if you're in consulting. Raise your hand if you have a YouTube channel or you're a content creator. And any startups? Okay, a couple startups.
Okay.
So it looks like about half and half, content creators versus businesses.
So with I guess one thing that Jared kind of came to the table with early on was we had contemplated filmmaking, and then we thought, how about how about short films? That's what you do, right? And Jared said, this is kind of like a dead medium. There's no one really doing any, who's going to watch a short film? And so it was the calling card of the 90s, I guess. And so we thought, how can we go get something new and fresh? And so one principle that really I think Jared latched onto is the idea of understanding the medium, like what is web content and web video really used for? And it is for viral experiences. And it's for people having something to share. It really comes down to like having this little nugget that they can post on their Facebook page and say, I was the first one to find this for you guys, check it out. And so knowing that that was the intention, we were able to create, and again, whether we knew this or not, going into it, I think that's what we've started to discover, is that that's really what the content's about, and that's where the YouTube platform shines, and so that kind of led and informed kind of what we created. So that also goes into if you have your own business or what you're creating, you don't want to create just an ad or an infomercial, but think about the piece of content that people really can find exciting. I think a great example of that is Blendtec, Will It Blend? It's a blender company. I don't know if you guys have seen that video series. Anyone seen that before? Okay, no. It's a blender company called Blendtec, and they have this, it's a great ad campaign. They say, will it blend? And so they use their own blender to see if they can throw an iPad in there, will it blend up? Or if they put an iPhone in there, or anything else that's like a really hot device that no one wants to put in there, like an Apple Watch will probably be in there next.
Yeah, I mean, that's like, it's totally brilliant. That's like the best example of, taking your business and making it super viral on YouTube. I mean, they're huge, and it's an amazing concept.
So we've talked a little bit about the elements that make YouTube unique and what you guys did. So starting out with content strategy, tell us a little bit about what the next step is once you've sort of identified, okay, well, this is my company or my business, and these are the kinds of videos that I want to be making. What were your next steps with that? I mean, did you put together a production plan, and what did that look like, and how many videos, and all that stuff?
So one of the, so YouTube has a playbook that they publish that kind of says, here are the best practices for a channel. And one of like the clearest kind of paths to success on YouTube is constant uploads. So having like a frequent schedule. So we knew early on that with our first show, we created a sketch comedy show. So each episode of that video was completely different. The budgets changed every time. We couldn't reuse the same set. So we realized that we wanted to create a show that was easy to kind of have recur, and you had the same set, and it was the same setup, and you could film 4 at a time on one backdrop or in one location, and then just kind of shoot them out. So we created a format that was just that. It was like a host in his library talking to the camera, but that gave us the ability to shoot 4 and have them on a regular release schedule. So every week we had a new episode, and that was kind of the piece of our production plan that helped unlock the business, was the fact that we were then able to create content for $200 an episode as opposed to, let's say, $500 or eventually $2,000 as the cost crept up. So that kind of led to the path of the story, and then eventually, once we had a second show on, we had to kind of program that as well and figure out the production plans around that. But creating content that we could kind of shoot out at one time that gave us another ability to keep your YouTube costs low in order to build a business plan that actually makes some sense. We're not spending a ton of money. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's great. And on that note, maybe you could talk a bit about why this particular marketing strategy is so efficient and powerful, and why it's unlike any other time in history for independents.
What's super exciting about the platform is, first of all, you can monetize your content. So if you do have enough views, you can really kind of rely on a little bit of ad revenue. For us, it's not massive. We don't get a ton of money from YouTube, but you can get some back. And then there's the ability to overlay merchandise sales. We're selling merchandise for our t-shirts for our show. And then you can overlay brand sponsors. And so what that becomes for us, like the way we've architected our business now, is that YouTube is our marketing platform. It's the place where we can go capture users. There's 1 billion people watching a month. We get a fraction of them watching our channel, and the idea is that eventually we're going to migrate them to something else. We're going to take them to a subscription business or take them down the path of buying product or something different. But my point is that when you can monetize the content, then you can actually have your content be cheap enough and eventually maybe even cash flow positive so that your marketing is working for free for you. And for a business, obviously you guys know that's kind of brilliant. I mean, if your content marketing can be free, that means you're able to capture an audience, build a brand without spending a lot of money. Seeing a lot of
No, I mean, it seems like we have a lot of people coming from a lot of different sectors here, and it's kind of, as someone, me doing the content, it seems like somebody who, is doing consulting, or someone who's doing entertainment, it's going to be very different in terms of the content side, which is me. So I'm very open to hearing individual questions.
I just have a question. You mentioned you have 30,000 subscribers and 17 million.
I'm going to pass the microphone around here. Hold on. I'll let you speak into the mic.
Wait.
You said that you had over 30,000.
360,000.
360,000.
But who's counting?
17 million views. But you said the monetization wasn't necessarily all that much for you guys. So how does it break down for monetization if you have that level of like subscriber and viewer content?
And once again, the thing that we derive most of our value from is, one, merchandise, as he said, two, sponsorship. Like right now, our brand is sponsored by Audible, and so because we have a very literate audience, that we can command a bit higher of a price, or at like a comparable price to if somebody is watching a prank video that has 1 million views, probably there's going to be very little percentage of that converting to actually buying an audiobook, whereas, if I'm teaching somebody about Nietzsche and then asking them to buy an audiobook, that makes more sense. So there's that. Did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, sure. So the model from YouTube is you get paid per 1,000 views. You have a certain CPM, cost per impression. So the way that breaks down is there's typically an ad fill rate. So based on how many views that you would have, what percentage of those get filled with ads, and then that math backs out to a CPM. So how much do you get paid? What's your effective CPM, your effective price per 1,000 impressions? And that math, even if you do the math, right now we're at about 1.6 million views a month. Honestly, if you do the math and you back it out with the fill rates and the fill rate, it's not nearly as much as we're spending on content. It's only a fraction of it. The idea, again, our hope here is that with our investors and with our plan is that we're going to build this audience, this base today, that in the future, once we hit this certain threshold of enough views and enough viewership each month, then we're able to kind of hit this threshold where the content is being paid for by the ads. There are other shows, though, like look at, I guess like Epic Mealtime is a good example, like where they might be spending on an episode, let's say $1,000 in ingredients to make a video, but it gets 6 million views, or even 2 million views. The math starts to back out. You've already paid for your ingredients and then some, plus on top of all of that, you've got the gravy, you've got the merchandise, you've got the TV show, and you name it. So, but again, if you can do the math, if you back out the numbers, it just doesn't come out to a lot of money, considering how much we're spending on content. But it is cool, it's nice. Can you hear that?
What were the most important or the most effective things you did to build your audience, especially early on?
So with the first show, we had no idea what we were doing. So we had a whole bunch of views, and you had like 700,000 views, but then you had like 2,000 subscribers in the channel. So we were doing nothing to lead people to subscribe. And so one of the quick lessons, even as we moved into the end of that series, into episodes like 6 and 7, we quickly started to push the subscribe button. The idea of like, hey, you've just watched this video, you've loved it, now make sure you latch into our world here. And so we did set up a website to collect email addresses. It was like, hey, share it with your friends, and we collected your email address. And then we had an email list. My brother's an entrepreneur, and he just said, like, just make sure you're collecting email addresses or you're building up your user base, because once you have that, you can then communicate with them. And so in a sense, we weren't prepared to do that correctly from day one with Bubble Please. And even with our second show, Thug Notes, we also weren't really set up with a subscribe message until later on, I think, right? Or a subscribe end card until later.
We didn't do that, but one thing that we did, like, and that was kind of initial part of the plan, is that the content itself, the format of it, kind of promises more content. So for example, if you're watching Thug Notes on The Great Gatsby, the format itself communicates to the audience that we're going to do more books, and this format is repeatable. So, you know, like for Bubble Please, when people saw our first episode, like, you know, our first episode got 700,000 views, and our second one got like 100,000 views, and then it just kept getting lower and lower from that, because people watch the first episode and they're like, oh, this is a funny video, you know, but there's nothing in the format or in the content that promises that you're going to get more of that, or that it's going to be a continuing thing.
It's a series, but we did, again, I think the first episode says subscribe, right, at the end? The To Kill Mockingbird or one of those? It doesn't. So yeah, so we didn't even learn our own lesson the first time around. Like, I guess the lesson would be, when you ask people to subscribe, they do, you know, and you ask people to actually take the action and they like your content enough, they will. And so that was a huge boon for us, because if we hadn't done that, we would never be able to communicate with them for episodes 2, 3, and so on. Now, on top of all of that, YouTube has its own algorithm with communicating with users. You don't get a one-to-one relationship the way you do with Twitter, for example, where if you tweet something, it's gonna show up in their Twitter stream. With subscribership, you have to really kind of think about the algorithm of YouTube, and is the content reaching all these inboxes? But at a high level, it was all about kind of saying, hey, subscribe, let's go ahead and share this content. Let's do a lot with, again, media promotion. We had a relationship eventually with the Huffington Post. So every time we had a new episode, we sent it to them and said, hey, go feature that and go share it. It climbed on Reddit on its own accord.
I'm going to jump in here and ask you to talk about your talent for a moment.
Sure.
The person on camera is almost just as important as the person behind the camera.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about why Greg is phenomenal and people like him and watching him.
Yeah, that's another thing, is that YouTube very much functions on like, you know, 90% of the most successful channels are all based on cult of personality, which is actually something that our brand only sort of relies on, which is actually kind of it's kind of an issue for us. And so, you know, like, although YouTube has been good to us in some ways, there are a lot of ways that the medium is also like, our content or our brand is not necessarily optimized for YouTube, but that's now, maybe in the future it will be. In terms of finding talent, you know, just my background in filmmaking, you know, I had lived out here for 2 years before starting anything on YouTube, doing some producing and stuff like that. And so I had met this writer who's now writing on the John Oliver show, and I just asked, you know, I always get the best talent from personal recommendations. I mean, you can do like the LA casting or whatever, and actually that's where we found the stars of our first show, were through just random LA casting. It ended up working out great. But in terms of Greg and everyone that we've worked with since then, it's all been through personal recommendations. People, if you know anyone who is active in Upright Citizens Brigade or something like that, you know, it's a very active community. Just ask for introductions, or in the case of Kevin Avery, who writes on John Oliver, he had kind of came up with Greg in San Francisco and introduced me to him, and, you know,
Yeah, that's perfect. Because I mean, I think a lot of people aren't thinking the way that you guys already think, which
Right.
is by working with potentially other people or even themselves to be on camera consistently as an important part of that strategy, right? So how do you organize that in a way that's still on point with whatever your brand is, and it doesn't create a liability, and it can be consistent? In other words, setting up a day of shooting with the person who's going to be on camera, and you get 12 videos, and you put them up over 3 months. Like, talk about that for a minute.
So are you talking? Are you talking about just like deal making, or just like kind of like production scheduling?
Not deal making necessarily, but I'm talking about making the cookies. I'm talking about making the cake. Like, once you know you've nailed down these.
Oh, just like the process of like up to that first day of production.
Yeah, putting the ingredients together and
Well, you know, once again, like we are doing a show where there are scripts and stuff like that. I mean, and I don't know if, you know, depending on the content that you're trying to make, but for us, like the process was, so first of all, if you're looking for talent to host or something like that, some great resources are lacasting.com. It's free. You just put up a casting call, and you know, even if you don't have any money, like it's an option to like say, you know, we'll give you credit and a meal, and you know, actors that are trying to build up their reel, you know, they just want exposure. And so you can do that. Another one is Now Casting, also free. So you know, you set up a casting call. On the website, you put like the description of what you're looking for. Then people will submit to you headshots, and you know, you're thinking to yourself like, oh, well, who's going to want to audition for my dinky thing that no one's ever heard of? Trust me, you put any role down, you'll get like 500 desperate LA actors who just want anything. They just want to, you know, experiment. And then I had access to this like classroom from the school I used to go to out here. So like we would use that as a destination to hold the auditions. And you know, when you're holding auditions, it's always nice to like just a tip that may seem trivial but is actually quite meaningful to the talent is just, you know, bringing like snacks, a water bottle, you know, making sure that, you know, they're coming out there for no money, like who knows, driving from the west side. You know, their time is very valuable, so you know, just making them feel welcome. After that, you know, you find your cast, you schedule, you know, you find a location. You know, honestly, finding a location, it's always best if you just try and pull a favor again, because especially in Los Angeles, getting locations is really expensive because everyone's used to like, you know, oh, okay, well, you know, the new Star Wars movie wants to film in my backyard. I'm gonna, you know, get $20,000 out of it. You know, so. You know, it's best if you do it through a favor. In terms of camera equipment and stuff, I mean, honestly, these days, like your iPhone shoots pretty good video. In terms of audio, I would recommend spending some money on that. There's a thing called a Zoom box, Z-O-O-M, that's about $300, that records some pretty good audio. Am I going off base? I'm talking like the whole production experience. Okay. So they also actually, probably a better idea than the Zoom box, they actually sell these microphones that you can actually plug directly into your headphone jack for your iPhone. And so bam, right there you've got like HD. Does the iPhone shoot in 1080p? It's like 1080p video. I mean, it looks great, and it can potentially sound great. And honestly, for YouTube, you don't really need anything better than that. And so then, you know, comes to editing. You know, for people who have never edited before, I could recommend iMovie. You know, it's pretty user friendly. And yeah, then do you want to know about like the process of creating a YouTube channel, or like, you know, like just the physical process?
Yeah, I think we can get to that. I want to cover one more point, which is once the video has been created, your job is only half done.
Sure, right? Sure.
So talk about like the aftermath of like titling and tagging and doing that strategically, and like where do you put that video and all that fun stuff.
Okay, so let's assume that you know, cast, shot, everything's in the can. Then you got to create your YouTube channel. So the first thing you have to do is you have to create a Gmail account. And you know, so for us, like our first, when we created the channel, it was thugnotes@gmail.com. And from that, like every Gmail account has like basically its own YouTube channel. Basically, you just have to go into your Gmail account and like go to my channel or whatever, and then you can customize it and all that kind of stuff. And you also have the ability to kind of name your channel. Like if it was thugnotes@gmail.com, I could still change the name of the channel to like, you know, Fun with Books or whatever. And then, so once you've done that and you've uploaded your video, there's this thing called tagging. And tagging is basically allowing for your content to be search optimized. And the thing is that like 90% of videos that are watched on YouTube are found by searching, because YouTube is, what is it, like the second most searched engine in the world. So like people are searching on YouTube all the time. So if you're doing something about baseball, you're gonna wanna make sure that when someone searches baseball, that your content comes up, because that's gonna, you know, visibility is everything. No one's going to watch your content if they can't see it. So, you know, when you're uploading the video, there's this box that's called tagging, and you want to make sure to just really be exhaustive with it. You know, tag baseball, tag the name of the players that you're talking about, and you know, such and so on. Just really get into the nitty-gritty. You want anything else?
Sure. I mean, there are so many tools. It depends on how how basic we want to go. I mean, if we want to talk with, again, I think the very, very basics is set up an email account and create the account. So you just create your YouTube channel and you're good to go. Once you upload it, there are different things you want to play with. There is access to that creator playbook, which you can search for. Just search in YouTube creator playbook. And it really does, for an introductory kind of cursory introduction to how the YouTube platform is best used, I think I really recommend it. It talks to you about tags, about thumbnails, about titling, about creating all the sorts of features that you might want to use, annotations, etc. Linking, you can do a whole bunch of cool things with the platform that might help the video get discovered, which is what you want to do. Yeah. Hi.
Just like this.
Okay. You're mentioning luck as well as the playbook. So most people are saying that it's maybe about 20% success on YouTube is based on to the method, similar to the Bible Kevin Malty wrote 5 years ago, got beyond viral. And 80% really is luck, getting hit, you know, and then, as you say, finding out where it's coming from. So since you saw your video start off and then drop off so much, have you gone back to figure out, you know, backtracking where did it all come from so that you can replicate or bring more visibility?
So the place where we've had the most success for Thug Notes, at least, we had, gosh, 35,000 subscribers in a day, was off of Reddit. And Reddit is a community that's impossible to penetrate, I think. I mean, there might be people who've done it, but for us it was, Jared kind of always says, is one gracious person who we have no idea who that person is. We can see their username, but we don't know them. Found it, discovered it, and posted it, and made it to the front page of Reddit. And then 2 days, or a week later, our second video, or the second viral video, was Lord of the Flies, same thing. It climbed to the front page of Reddit. So both times they were, in a sense, completely out of our hands. But I will say the content was created with the intention to drive a reaction. You know, it was provocative content. And that was all 3 times, really, we kind of created shows that did that were something that had been unseen before. And that, in a sense, was engineered so that if it did tip, or it had more of a likelihood to tip, because it was something interesting and buzzworthy. And then, again, as we had more experience, we got more and more prepared to accept that kind of surge of activity, right? So we were able to say, hey, subscribe on day 1. And that, you know, again, with each time we have a kind of a lift like that, we're ready to accept it. But I would say it's really Jared, you know, engineering content that's meant to be shared, that has that kind of intention, right? Go ahead.
Yeah, so I have 2 questions. So besides the Reddit, did you guys actively seek out content partners that were distributing like media outlets or blogs? Besides the spontaneous Reddit, did you guys actively seek out content partner distribution, whether it be blogs or media? And the second question is, I do a lot of stuff with media and cause-based content, so that there's a little bit of a tether to like how far you can push the envelope, because people have a board of directors, and obviously you guys are doing fascinating stuff with education, but
we have no
some of
strings,
it's a little too, you know, like I couldn't do it. I mean, you speak to some advice about how to make that more compelling without people's, you know, sirens going off? And
it's kind of an unfortunate problem. I mean, you know, as kind of like our jobs are to kind of see what goes viral every day, and unfortunately most of the stuff that goes viral is when it pisses somebody off, you know, like, or if it, you know, it gets people's, you know, if it upsets people. People love to be outraged, so, you know, anything that outrages somebody is going to go viral. But as far as your first question, so yes, I mean, one thing that you want to make sure to do is any success you have, like even if it's a small blog, you want to make sure to reach out to that person and create a relationship. I mean, think of it like Pokemon. I mean, you're really collecting bloggers, collect these people, you know? Like, so for example, when our first show, Blah Blah Please, was covered by the Huffington Post, we did reach out to that writer and say, hey, thank you very much for covering our show, you know, blah, blah, blah. So she followed us on Twitter, we followed her on Twitter. That allows for direct messaging. So we direct messaged her on our Blah Blah Please account, said, hey, we have this new show called Thug Notes. It's like kind of an interesting take on literature education, and she watched it and she loved it. And excuse me, our first 3 episodes of Thug Notes were covered on the Huffington Post comedy page, not the front page. And you would think that, oh, Huffington Post anything would drive a lot of traffic. Not really. The Huffington Post comedy page only drove like a couple hundred views. But I mean, it's a possibility that the Reddit, you know, the Reddit angel that we pray to every night, found it there. We just don't know. It could be that, you know, it could have just been from one of our sharing it on Facebook. It could have been anything. But so for your second question, in terms of another thing, there's a very successful YouTube channel called Soul Pancake, and we work pretty closely with them. We're familiar with a lot of the people that are higher up on their staff, and they do a really good job of appealing to people's emotions and stuff like that. So I think that's something where, like, you know, high production value and good sound and good music, and, you know, really being able to draw emotion out of the people you're interviewing or whatever can really help, because I do think that, you know, aside from outrage, emotion is something that is very shareable.
Any other questions right here?
Yeah.
I'd like to know about what your company structure is like, and like how many staff you have, and you know how you got there.
Sure. We're keeping it very lean as possible. We work with a lot of contractors. So the full-time team is 4 people. It's the 2 of us. We've just hired someone who's kind of a co-founder and COO, someone who's running all of the business development, marketing, and sales. So it's really the person to, in a sense, architect this cool YouTube channel and creative collaboration into a business. You know, really kind of get the wheels in motion, set the tracks in place for us to be a, you know, an engine down the road. And then we have a full-time editor, which we probably wouldn't have hired ordinarily, but he's just an amazing, amazing, amazing guy who works tirelessly, and he's amazing. You know, he's just a really creative guy. And Jared and I just wanted to snatch him up, and in a sense, wanted him to be our own. So he's joined us now too.
Stolen from another channel.
Yeah, we stole him from another channel, from the Fred channel. But our company, so after Thug Notes had its initial surge, we got pulled in by YouTube's education team. It was an intern working for YouTube who pulled us in and said, you're one of the most creative, interesting kind of things happening in education. You're growing really quickly. How are you doing it, and what is your plan? And so Jared and I kind of off the cuff said, we want to do this for a whole bunch of different topics, not just literature. We want to teach philosophy, psychology, sociology, history. And that was a kind of an off-the-cuff plan, but we were trying to appeal to them because we knew that they had money. And so YouTube said, we have a small little fund, and we'd be interested in maybe keeping Thug Notes going, but testing some of these other concepts. So seeing, can you guys do it again in education, or is it a one-trick pony? Like, did you guys capture lightning in a bottle and it's done now? Or do you have the ability to create another education show that's interesting and can go viral? And so Jared had come up with a concept called 8-bit philosophy. And 8-bit philosophy is taking classic Nintendo games like Mario or Zelda and mashing them up with philosophy concepts. So we'll teach Marxism through Mario, or we'll teach about Plato's allegory of the cave through Zelda. And so that show got launched, and we saw a second success, a second wave. And so our batting average was 3 for 3 at that point. We had Boobala Please, we had Thug Notes, we had 8-bit philosophy. And something we had never considered before was, what if we became digital showrunners? You know, we don't have any experience in television. We've never made a feature, but we could be the guys who understand the medium of digital content, and could be the guys running the show. And we're not a personality. We're not in front of the camera ever. And so that led to this idea of, I knew from experience from trying to raise money before that people weren't going to invest in just anything. You know, I said, oh, we're a creative collaboration. We're really smart guys. Invest in us, trust us, and no one bought into that. But once we had this very, very focused business, which was, we're going to go do like Sesame Street, but for adults. You know, we're going to be this educational company that's edgy and fun and new and built for a social and mobile audience. Once we had that story locked in, we were able to get investors. You know, I was able to go out and find people who found that very interesting. We also had Jared brought up a book deal as well. So Random House had approached us and said, this Thug Notes show is fascinating. We'd love to turn it into a book. And so we found a great agent who was able to secure a good deal. And so once we had the YouTube validation, we had 3 successful shows, we had the focus of the education brand, and we had this book deal under our belt, we had a story, you know, and that's in a sense how we were able to raise a round of funding. And so that's what we're using now. Again, the promise is we'll build an audience today. We're you know, operating at a deficit, we're operating at a loss, but the whole expectation is that once we build a big enough audience, we can monetize them in other ways.
This is great stuff. Other questions right here? Let me run the mic over to you 1 second.
Can you tell us more about your relationship with YouTube? Is it ongoing? How often do you speak with them? And do they have any expectations, or how do they measure your success?
We actually have a decent relationship with YouTube. So after that That initial kind of introduction to the education team, we got connected to their head of education, a woman named Angela Lin, and she was in that first meeting, and she became sort of a champion for us to help us secure that initial piece of funding. It was a little tiny experiment amount, but that built a relationship with Angela. And then she introduced us to other education creators. There was an educational summit up in San Bruno, and we got to meet other education creators, people like Crash Course and Veritasium, all these other education channels. And then through that, the YouTube space, so if you have a channel with over 10,000 subscribers, you get free access to the studios in Playa Vista, which are incredible, 60,000 square feet, the best equipment on earth, everything is free. So the only threshold is 10,000 subscribers. So I don't know if you guys has anyone been there before? It's incredible. Have you been there before? It's amazing. It's beautiful. I mean, it's like the best cameras, the best equipment, you name it. And so through there, we got to meet other people as well. And so now we have, in a sense, we're an email away from about 6 or 7 contacts at YouTube.
Okay, one more question back here.
So I was just wondering how long it took you to get all those subscribers, and when did you start seeing the numbers rise up? Yeah, that's kind of my question.
So we had our initial surge. So the channel Thug Notes was launched as a separate channel. We got the initial surge after 4 weeks or 3 episodes. And that was, again, about 25 to 35,000 subscribers in a day that came from Reddit. So Reddit really is unbelievable, in a sense, through Reddit. Yeah, it was unbelievable. And then over time, we started to see this kind of a constant rate. It was just kind of this constant trickle. You'd see on our weekly feed, at that point, we were only posting 1 video a week. But every time a video got posted, you'd see the surge of subscribers, and then it would decline, a little spike each week. And so it was clear that a video led to subscribers, and the math started to back out. It was like every dollar we spent on content, we were seeing a new subscriber. So that kind of became our cost of acquisition. And then we had, in a sense, over time, it was like fatigue. We'd start to see people, each incremental video wasn't really adding as much. And what helped in that case was launching a second show, and that gave a lot of news. It was like, oh wow, there's something all entirely new here. That also made it to the front page of Reddit, and then luckily that brought us another nice surge. And then there's pieces like the New York Times wrote an article about our channel and our show, and that also had a huge spike. And so you see these little activities on your chart, and overall it's kind of steady. I mean, it's steady growth. But we did go through a rebranding from the Thug Notes channel to the Wisecrack channel. We wanted it to be this idea of like a whole suite of content. But over time, really it's kind of started off really high, and now it's been pretty constant. And you see constantly this hockey stick sort of effect happen. Certain channels have like a nice base, and then all of a sudden one day it tips yet again, and people realize what this content really is. Like, wow, this channel has a lot.
I have a question about there's a way to get YouTube certified, and I don't know if you can talk a little bit more about that. There's the certification of sort of understanding, I believe it's the back-end
CMS.
And is that something that you have? And can you talk about a little bit about how to obtain that?
We were the question is about the potentially the certification, YouTube certification. So we're not YouTube certified. You can be YouTube certified if you're kind of an admin or an operational side. So if you work for a multi-channel network, if you work for Maker Studios, you can be YouTube certified. We were very lucky, again, through Angela, through our contact on the education side. She gave us what's called CMS, the Content Management System Backend, which is what an MCN is, what a multi-channel network is. So Maker Studios is, in effect, has its own CMS, its content management system. From there, they can have thousands or millions of channels signed up to them, and then they can administer the content that way.
Proprietary to the actual MCN, or is that just a standard platform?
It's a standard platform from YouTube. It's called Content Manager, or CMS, and then every MCN has its own. And so they gave us the ability to be our own MCN. We don't really use that. We actually, in a sense, we just signed up with an MCN. But we used it for what's really good for is for content identification and for content ID. And what content ID is we upload an episode of 8-Bit Philosophy, for example, and then all of a sudden that video is now appearing in Russia, right? And someone else has uploaded it and dubbed it. So what we have the ability to do is we have the choice now. YouTube will automatically say, hey, Wisecrack, your video has been uploaded somewhere else by somebody else. Do you want to block it? Do you want to tag it? Do you want to monetize it? What do you want to just track it? And so it gives you that kind of ability. So what the training is that you're talking about is effectively the training to be able to administer that tool. For us, it's very simple. We only had like 1 channel or 2 channels. But if you want to get certified for, let's say, Maker Studios or Fullscreen, you could be administering thousands of channels, and so they have a certification behind that.
I'll talk about that real briefly. We are YouTube certified as a company, Creator Up, and I'd be happy to talk to you about the process afterwards, but it's fairly rigorous training and test that you have to learn all of the mechanisms by which YouTube works, and it's complicated, but it's possible.
Just a quick follow-up. Do you block that video, or do you let it sit out there so you can get more views and have more awareness?
We let it live there. Yeah, we typically will either track it or monetize it, but let it live. In a sense, for us, at this point, it's about exposure. So even if it is trending, I mean, honestly, Thug Notes in Russia is huge. I mean, it's like videos are getting more views than the American videos at times. You'll see one video gets 70 or 100,000 views in Russia. We're monetizing it. Of course, the monetization in Russia is not great, so YouTube doesn't have a lot of ad inventory in Russia. But again, it's like let it live. Great. And you still see our branding appear, so it's still there.
Since Reddit seems to be so important, do you find yourself making content that is Reddit friendly, or you're designing content specifically for the Reddit demographic, or do you create content that you're just passionate about and hope that a Reddit angel sits on it?
That's you.
Well, I mean, the Reddit angel is just that, he's an angel. So like I can't, there is also this element of chaos to that, so I would never rely on Reddit. Another thing is that like, I don't know if you guys ever go on Reddit, but it's a very like sensitive community in that if you try and pander to them in any way, they will destroy you, they will maliciously take you down. So in that sense, no. I mean, in a sense, when I came up with 8-Bit Philosophy, I was like, well, first of all, gaming, huge on YouTube, and I just like, I thought the idea of like 8-Bit Nietzsche fighting Mega Man was funny. So, so in a sense, like I knew that like, those are things that would go well within that community, but also like, I mean, I can't really name you another like large internet community that would connect with something that is like so collegiate as well as edgy and smart, I mean, because it's just one of the bigger communities out there. So I guess the answer to that is yes and no.
Similarly, like for example, like my mom would have no idea what Reddit is. So are you aiming for the age group that is going to be on Reddit to begin with, or even aware that something like that exists?
Right, so something worth considering is that the average YouTuber is like 6. So like if you get on your phone and YouTube Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, there's one video, we actually know the guys who run this company, it has like 500 million views of just somebody singing Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, because all these kids have iPads or whatever. So in a sense, like our content is not optimized for the YouTube channel. We're trying to, for the YouTube platform, we're trying to go for like an audience that's more similar to Vice, and that is kind of our demographic right now, 18 to 35-year-olds. And I'm sorry, so it was your question?
I think that, yeah.
Okay, yeah, I mean,
it's a little bit of both.
It's a hard audience to pinpoint, because especially like people our age like don't really consume YouTube regularly. Like we're still on TV and movies and stuff like that. But I think that because like we all have Netflix on our TV and YouTube is just like one click away, I think that like it's just the boundaries are going to blur.
Okay, my question is, are you doing anything in between when you post to develop relationships or to continue relationships on Twitter or Facebook, on Reddit? Are you talking back to them? Are you posting, do you have a content scheduler for, hey, we have a new episode, using different wordage?
Yes, but that's something that we need to do more of, and that's kind of something that we're kind of initiating right now. I mean, honestly, like, for most of the time we've had this channel, it's just been us, and like, we're just slammed, reading books, writing, animating, and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, like we have, social media accounts. We try and like, just post articles that we think our fans would like. We'll post pictures that our fans would like. we never really engaged with Reddit. We're starting to do that. Like, okay, so so one way in which you can, now I hope no one here's a Redditor, because like I'm not saying I'm trying to game Reddit, but like, is one thing you can do. I mean, obviously if you say, hey, there's a new episode of Thug Notes, we're the Thug Notes guys, check it out, they're gonna be like, fuck you. But like what we're trying to do now is we're starting to become what is called basically a curator. So basically, like if the Thug Notes account starts pointing to other stuff like, hey, this is a real cool video about astronomy, or hey, this is a cool video about, you know, math or something like that, and then you get credit, you know, for, you know, linked karma, exactly. So like, then you kind of grow like a personality on Reddit and such and so forth, and that's something we're trying to get into now.
And fostering the relationships is super important between. So we have our Facebook page. We've got, again, it's like, right now we're finally at a point where we have someone helping us with social media, and they're scheduling the posts. So they know the calendar, like tomorrow, The Color Purple is being released. He already has a post prepared and launched and ready to go. And the more we kind of get ahead of that, it's nicer because we just have the content spitting out. And then at the same time, if we get a really cool tweet that he, you know, a fan sent us a picture of our actor, you know, we're able to retweet that, and it kind of goes into the stream as well as everything else. So just like, what we're trying to do, like a really good channel to look at is the Fine Brothers. They just do, I mean, the content is not our cup of tea, but they do such an amazing job of just constant engagement. Like every video, like they have like a, you know, like the ticker that runs in the bottom of a news station. They've got that, but it's all their fans' comments just running all the time. So people are like waiting for their comment to get featured, which is exciting. Or they'll constantly say, how many likes can we get on this video? And you get a video that has 1 million likes. You know, so it's really fun, engaging stuff like that. And anyway, we do it in our own kind of way in between. So we're only uploading, let's say, 3 videos a week. In between that, we'll have really fun social messages and posts. So now we're having a Facebook post every day at least. There's at least one tweet a day, and something to get our fans engaged in between.
Is it helping drive traffic? Do you
A little
find it
bit.
worthy investment, or is it just for?
It's hard to measure. Like we just did a campaign for our subscribers to get our subscribers to win a free signed copy of a book from our actor, from Greg. And that drove a ton of traffic. So our subscribers, again, you have this like segment of the subscriber base that loves the show, and made like 5,000 people sign up for this activity for a free signed book. I mean, 5,000 people who would take the time. There's like 10 different steps required. The fact that they did that is super, super engaged, right? So you see that kind of result, and you see like that kind of fan passion. Just to give those 5,000 people the ability to connect with the brand on a day is great. But then in terms of views, I mean, sometimes like, you know, social is our second or third biggest referrer of traffic, so it still drives a lot of traffic for us. But it's hard to say. You know, there's not going to be it doesn't have a math that backs out. I mean, we're spending more to maintain our social media than we're making from views. But that's the same thing goes for our content. We're spending more to make the content that we're making from YouTube. So it's kind of, again, it's a brand play. We're trying to build a brand. Whoa.
And here we go.
My question is about the time investment. It seems to me that you're definitely doing this full time. Of course, like you mentioned, a lot of us have different professions,
right.
fields. It might not take as much time as maybe you're investing, but I guess my question is just the time investment, the monthly time investment, the weekly.
We have no lives.
Yeah, if you're asking about us personally, like, yeah, we have no lives. But, I mean, you know, it all just depends on the content. Like, our content, you know, I mean, we read every every book that we cover on Thug Notes is read cover to cover, you know? So, I mean, it's just like, and like analyzed, and scripts are written, and it's just animated, like it's, you know, we made a very premium product. Now, if you're someone like Jenna Marbles and you're basically just, you know, talking in front of your webcam, then like there's no time investment, you know? I mean, you could just talk about how great the makeup you just bought is, and then bam, like super successful. So it just depends.
Oh my
yeah.
gosh, those girls.
Yeah.
There are certain categories. So now just kind of getting investors on board and learning the business, you get to talk to a lot of companies. So if you guys are starting from scratch, the highest paying categories are like makeup, fashion, food and lifestyle. Like these are the brands that have like incredibly high CPMs. You can get great brand sponsorship and brand integration built in. But there's a lot of people doing that. So we found a hole that there was no one doing anything in the humanities. We captured it. You know, we're trying to go capture that market today. But if you can do makeup, do makeup.
Cool. So you guys have been very generous with your time with us tonight. I feel like it's best for us to sort of wrap up here and a few more questions to give everyone a chance to interact with these guys on a more personal, individual level before they jet out of here. So if there are any other questions, we'll take them now. Okay, I'll be right there. 1 second.
You need the microphone, I guess, the recording.
I heard you say you actually are going with another MCN instead of starting your own. What's the value in that when you're already big to go with another MCN versus having all yours under one umbrella?
We found it like impossible to find any benefit for so long. We're like, why would anyone sign up with an MCN? We happen to have a really, so what the debate was, we wanted to drive brand sales. We wanted to get brands to sponsor our content. And the decision was either we go build our own sales team or we latch into another one. And so we have a product that has enough views now and enough of a community that we can justify that, but we can't afford to pay a sales guy's base salary $150,000 a year or something. We can't afford that. So that's why we signed up with Defy. They gave us kind of 3 things that were important for us. Number 1 was they had that sales team that we were looking for, a team they're driving $150 million a year in sales, in brand deal sales. So we thought, again, if we can get a portion of that, if we can get even $150,000 in sales, that relationship is worthwhile to us. Number 2 is that they have a lot of promotion capabilities. So they work with a lot of great consultants. We work with Defy Media. So Defy Media is the only MCN that has their owned and operated channels, or at least one of the few that started as an O&O company. So they understand how to make media and sell it and distribute it, and et cetera. They created Smosh, which is a really huge, and they have Honest Trailers. I'm sure you guys have all seen that. So they understood that, and so from that perspective, we thought from a promotion standpoint, they were going to help us develop our audience too. And then number 3 is distribution. So they own dozens of websites like The Escapist magazine, like Made Man, and so they have all these great sites that they're able to distribute our content for, and so we get paid a distribution deal to distribute our content outside of YouTube. So YouTube is our starting point, and then we get paid to distribute the content elsewhere. So it was a kind of a really good deal, and we got great terms. Again, we waited, we held out to a point where we had the leverage, but we got a great deal with them, and again, it's only been 2 weeks, so we'll see how it goes.
Okay, should we take one last question here? Is there anyone else who wants to chime in? Okay, very good.
Well,
so
we got
I want to.
Mike.
You one behind you there.
Oh, one. Oh, I missed it. Right in the back. Here we go.
Hello.
Hello.
If you had to give some advice, what would be like a piece of advice to get to start? Like if you tried to start your channel, you haven't been getting as many views and production as you wanted, what would you do to say to up that production of views and
I think be cynical, because if you think that good content does well on YouTube, you're wrong. And B, I would just take a look at the BuzzFeed model. I mean, BuzzFeed with their counticles, top 10 this, top 10 that. I mean, don't try and reinvent the wheel. If you have, if you're an expert on something, if you're an expert on, whatever, just use that. If you are an expert on movies, then make your channel about movies and make your own special top 10 list, or append yourself to some sort of format that already works. Because we've, in a sense, tried to reinvent the wheel and it's hurt us a lot. We've made a lot of mistakes and we're always learning. But I would say that, yeah, if you're looking for immediate success, find a formula that really works and then just take what you and only you have, that skill or that specialization only you have, and just inject that into it.
When did you start? How long did you do it?
We started, our first episode of Thug Nuts came out in June 2013.
We still have a couple more questions here.
Yeah.
We'll just keep on, we wrap it up here.
So this is his opinion. So one of the projects that I work on is actually, one of the projects that I work on is actually something that has an audience in the live space. And yes,
Like
it's a
theater?
live event thing.
Okay. Oh.
Well, it's not theater, but yeah,
Oh,
it's a
okay.
live event based thing. So it has an audience for that already currently. looking at using potentially YouTube as a platform to grow it digitally and expand it geographically through a digital means, because it's live, so you can't really like move it.
Yeah.
Do I have to worry about cannibalizing the current audience to grow that audience, or do you think it can kind of exist in their own little weirdness?
I mean, as long as you don't put up the exact same content, like, you know, whatever the live event is, at least you're not, as long as you're not filming the whole thing and then putting it on YouTube. But something I would recommend is that whatever the live event is, you probably like have some sort of a sign-in or like some sort of a newsletter, something like that. If you get those email addresses, you know, it's a lot easier to get people's email addresses on a live event than on YouTube, and like use that as, you know, the way to push your channel. And I think that that would be a pretty successful way to start your YouTube channel.
So I used to do a lot of live events in my last job, and so we would typically make the live event something completely special. So like either a really big name speaker. I don't know what the event is. If it's speakers, or is it, what kind of event is it?
It's a combination thing. So we actually import spoken word artists from around the world with live event. We also bring in musical acts as well. Sometimes we have
Cool.
some comedy acts that we throw in.
Okay, so it's a combination of spoken word and performance act. So in a sense, like make that live event, give them something that any attendee would not be able to get on the broadcast. YouTube does have a live stream, so you could do live streams of certain segments, and then it gets archived and you can leave it on the channel for good. But I think Jared's point is right. You might want to have different content for the channel as well, like in addition to kind of supplement the live event or the live stream. I don't think it would cannibalize. If you've got a big live following, I mean, so much of spoken word, you want to be there. You know what I mean? I think if people would want to be there, it's performance. So in a sense, but offering it to people around the world who can't fly in, you know, that's cool. And the live stream feature, I've never played with it, but I've seen other channels do it before, and it's kind of cool. Again, you can stream live, and then you can save it. It's on your channel forever.
I was going to say, or like if you have a comedian, like just put one of his bits on YouTube, and like, you know, if you want to see more, come to the live event kind of thing.
One more here.
You mentioned that you had made a lot of mistakes in the beginning. Just touch on that. Like, what are some of the mistakes?
I mean, where to start? I mean, like, so one thing that we learned is, so because Thug Notes went for like 8 months before we started a new show. And the thing about Thug Notes is that like each episode is a book, and you know, when you subscribe to a channel, you know how like on your Facebook feeds, like you're not seeing the posts from all your friends. You're just seeing the posts from like the friends that maybe you talk to the most or that you check their profile a lot. It's a lot the same thing with YouTube. So like, let's say that, you know, you subscribe to Thug Notes because you love The Great Gatsby, and our episode on The Great Gatsby was amazing, but then we do like 6 books on Dostoevsky and you don't care about Dostoevsky. Maybe you're not going to click on those 6 videos, but you still love Thug Notes. But because you haven't clicked on those 6 videos, the algorithm is going to basically, in a sense, disenfranchise your channel from showing up on that person's feed. So the problem is that we didn't realize this, and we were creating a show that's all about books. And you know, the chances are that like every one of your fans has read all these books or is going to want to, you know, watch a video about all these books is very slim. So if you're creating a YouTube channel and you want to, you know, be in line with the algorithm, create something that every one of your fans is going to watch every single video. They're going to want to binge it, because all that YouTube cares about is that you continue to watch more videos and you continue to, you know, watch more commercials, basically. So, you know, the more, yeah, so like they're going to suggest your channel more if they're channels that people watch one video and then watch 30. So that's just like one of the things that, you know, no one will tell you, but you just eventually learn that, you know, we really wish we'd have known before.
I'm going to wrap with one last question, which is, you know, YouTube is not the end game, it's the means to an end. So if you could talk about simple things like a call to action or helping guide, as you talked about, email collection, like putting your links in the website, like how do you do that? How do you reach your goals through YouTube?
Sure. So one thing that we're testing now, it's so funny. So I mentioned we have a third co-founder, someone who's really kind of head of operations. He's had a lot of experience before at other media companies. He asked us, like, you know, when's the last time you had your actor, your character, ask people to share this video? And we looked at each other and said, well, every video ends with the subscribe button. And he goes, no, but when did you have like the guy say, hey, thanks a lot for watching. I'm Greg. Hope you liked it. Please share it and like it. And we had never done that, you know. So in a sense, we just asked. On the last video, we just were at a meeting this morning, we were like, why did this video get twice as many likes as the last video, even though it has half the number of views? Well, that was a video where our actor said, thanks a lot for watching, click the like button. So I would just say, if you want them to do something, ask them to do it. In a sense, like give them that, make it really easy. That was a dud.
Very good. Well, listen, hey guys, thank you so much. I want to point out to the GA audience here that we are going to be doing a YouTube Biz class in April. So it'll be 3 classes, 3 sessions in the evening. Email me at mike@creatorup.com to sign up. And I'm asking.
Yeah, right, exactly. You gotta ask.
So I'm putting in but this has been super helpful, super valuable. I was blown away when I met Jacob the first time and learned about Thug Notes, and I really encourage all of you to go check it out, because when you see the content, you'll understand why it is so engaging and why YouTube is such a powerful platform. So with that, I'd like to give you guys a round of applause.
Thank you.
And thanks for joining us. So I think they may stick around for a few minutes.